When you think about the world's biggest challenges, things like climate change or global health, they don't really fit neatly into one single academic box, do they? Nope. They demand a whole new kind of science, one that really breaks down the walls between disciplines. Today, we're going to dive into the first ever global ranking that's designed to figure out which universities are leading this charge and what that means for all of us. And this right here, this quote from Times Higher Education, it really gets to the heart of it all. This isn't just some academic trend. It's about a fundamental shift in how we actually solve problems. The idea is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The biggest, most important breakthroughs happen at the crossroads where different fields meet. So, what are we talking about when we say interdisciplinary science? It feels like a super modern buzzword, right? But the idea of connecting different fields of knowledge has actually been building up for decades. Let's do a quick trip back in time to see how we got here. It's funny, this whole thing really kicked off as a philosophical debate. Way back in 1959, a guy named C.P. Snow famously called out the huge gap between scientists and humanities scholars. That sparked a conversation that by the 60s and 70s had students and teachers demanding an education that could actually tackle real-world problems. And boom, the first interdisciplinary programs were born. And that whole evolution leads us right to today, with the launch of a global ranking to finally measure it. Now, for this ranking, the definition they use is super specific. And the key word you gotta remember is integration. This is not just about, throwing a biologist and a computer scientist in the same room. It's about genuinely blending their knowledge, their methods, their entire way of thinking to attack one single problem from every possible angle. Okay, so for this first ever ranking in 2025, they had to draw a line in the sand. So what's in? Any project that combines two or more science disciplines. Think computer science plus life sciences. That's a classic. What's out, at least for now, are projects that mix science with non-science fields, like engineering and economics. It's a really focused start, and we're about to see why. All right, so that brings up a really interesting question, right? How in the world do you actually rank something as creative and, frankly, as messy as collaborative innovation across the entire globe? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the methodology.
How do you measure something this complex? It's not as simple as just, counting patents or something. To get the full picture, you have to look at the entire journey of the research, from the very first spark of an idea all the way to its impact on the world. The way they broke it down is actually pretty brilliant. Think of it like a startup. First, you've got your inputs. That's your seed money, your resources. Then you've got your process. That's like your company culture, the environment that helps people work together and create amazing things. And finally, you have your outputs. That's the final product, the tangible results that actually make a difference. And here's what's really telling. Just look at that weighting. A whopping 65%, that's almost 2/3 of the entire score, is based on outputs. So what does that mean? It means this ranking isn't about how much money you have, it's about what you do with it. It's all about results. So let's dig into what these pillars actually mean. Inputs is about the cash, sure, but it's also about where it's from. Is industry kicking in money because they need real-world solutions? Process looks at the environment. Are there physical spaces for people to collaborate? And this is huge. Do professors actually get promoted for teamwork or just for their solo work? And then there's outputs, the big one. That measures the research itself. How much of it is there? How good is it? And what do other scientists around the world think of it? And get this, the sheer scale of the data they looked at is just mind-blowing. We are talking about an analysis of 18 million research publications. On top of that, 157 million citations and survey responses from over 20,000 scholars. This is a massive, massive data set. Okay, so we've talked about the why and the how. Now for the fun part. Let's get to the results and see which universities have really mastered this new way of doing science. And here we go, the top 3 universities in the entire world for interdisciplinary science. Taking the top spot at number 1 is MIT. Right behind it at number 2 is Stanford University. And rounding out an incredible top 3 is the National University of Singapore. So, what put MIT at number 1? Well, it's not just about the money. They absolutely crushed it on both process and outputs. This shows they've built a culture that not only encourages collaboration, but also pumps out world-class results. A perfect example is their JPAL lab, which mixes economics and public policy to tackle poverty. For a student, that means you're learning in an environment that's basically built for teamwork. Now,
Stanford at number 2. Their story is all about one thing: results. They got the highest score on the entire planet for that outputs pillar. So when it comes to consistently producing research that is high impact and respected all over the globe, they are simply in a league of their own. And for society, that's huge. It means their work is already shaping the future. And then you have the National University of Singapore at number 3, and their success tells a really different but just as powerful story. This wasn't an accident. It's the result of a deliberate top-down strategy to make this kind of research a core priority for the entire university. They are literally building their institution around the idea of collaboration. But this isn't just a story about the top 3. When you look at the whole list, something else really stands out. India has the most universities in the entire ranking, 65 of them, followed by Turkey with 45. This shows that breaking down these scientific walls is becoming a truly global movement. Okay, so now that this ranking exists, this new benchmark is out in the world, what's next? Where do we go from here? How could this change what a university even is? Well, for starters, the ranking itself is already growing. Starting in 2026, they're expanding the definition to include projects that combine science with the social sciences, and that is a huge step forward. It's an admission that the world's biggest problems aren't just technical, they're human problems too. And all of this leads to a pretty huge final question, one that could really change everything. As we start to value this kind of collaborative, problem-focused science more and more, will we see a future where universities are defined not by their history departments or their physics departments, but by the global challenges they're set up to solve? It's a pretty wild thought about the future of knowledge itself. Thanks for tuning in.